All right, happy Monday, everyone. I am super excited. Patricia is going to be joining us today, and we are going to be talking all about ADUs. She is an amazing designer, has her own company, and has so much experience with owner build ADUs, GC ADUs. So she's going to be dropping all of the best knowledge today. So make sure you have your pen and paper or whatever device you use to take notes ready because I am super excited. Let me go ahead and send her the request to add her. All right. Oh, hey. Thanks for joining. All right, here we are.
Hi,
Hi.
how's it going?
Going great. How about you? I told you it zooms in.
I know it zooms in a lot.
I always have to
I'm like
adjust it.
moving 5 feet back now.
How's your day
Oh, it
going?
was pretty great today. I mean, the weather was bad. It was rainy. Actually, it was like sunny and then rainy and then sunny and rainy. But yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. How about you?
It's going great. But did you get that weird tornado warning?
Oh, I did. I really did.
That is
So
insane.
I know it's insane, but then it doesn't seem like it's windy. It's that windy today though. It's
No.
been super rainy, but not windy. So
Yeah.
I think we're good. We think
Yeah.
we're good.
I
Yeah.
think we're in the safe zone right
Yeah,
now.
we are in the safe zone. And you're in Rockland, so we're not too far apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm super excited to just get into it and have you share everything that you told me about
Of course.
ADUs and design, and I'm just so excited. So, from what we talked about, for everyone listening, so we're going to start from the top, and we're going to go through the process, and she's going to share just everything step by step, common pitfalls with each stage of the process, and then if you guys have any questions, just type it in, and we'll get to them when we can.
Of course. Yeah.
So starting, I guess, one of the most important first questions of this is who do you need on your team if you want to build an ADU?
Oh, so basically, actually, let's start from the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
There are different types of ADUs, and if you don't know what an ADU is, and you're just jumping into this call, ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit. Basically, it's like a second unit in your existing property. So let's say you have an existing single family, or you have an existing duplex, or even a multifamily. It's possible to do that as well. But if you're building a unit that is extra, and it's that's why it's called accessory. It is called an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit. Now, building one, obviously, there's a purpose to it. There's well, from what I can see, everyone's building it. Basically, these are the two very common purposes of building one. It could be for family. So back when ADUs weren't a thing yet, a few years ago, people would call it in-law suites or casitas actually. So yeah, the people would use it for family, like a guest house, or even having their, not having to live with their parents super far away. So they would want to have them in their backyard. Yeah, so they would build a secondary unit within their primary dwelling to have family. Now it's becoming such a trend nowadays that everyone's building one. So it's also a very good source of rental income. So instead of buying a new property where the process is super lengthy and you have to go through a lender and all that kind of stuff, instead of doing that, they actually build a secondary unit behind and just use it for rental. So it could be a one bed, two bed, one bath type of thing, and they'll have it as a very good income generating type of unit.
That's what I'm
But building
aiming
one,
for.
oh yeah, yeah, of course. So, but building one seems super intimidating, and a lot of homeowners are very hesitant to start anyways. Well, especially if you're in California, because California is really not cheap when it comes to real estate, and I'm sure we can all attest to that. Especially now with interest rates going skyrocketing. So it's really, the housing is just sometimes not affordable for everyone. So instead, they're going to build a secondary unit in their property. So intimidating to start, but as long as you have a good flow and you know the entire process, well, not everyone knows the entire process, but I'm going to walk you through a very simple process where you can vet out every single team member of the entire process, and then it'll make it easier for you to start building one. So from basically, this is, you know, my experience, and also just being able to direct clients. And for those of you who don't know, I'm an ADU designer. I literally design ADU from scratch, the architectural, the structural of it. And I also facilitate the permitting process. So I basically help the homeowners get their building permits for them to start building an accessory dwelling unit, and then for the contractors to build.
One
So
of the most intimidating parts.
yeah, that's a very intimidating part. I was talking to Miranda about this a few days ago, and I'm like, it's not the design that's hard. It's really not. It's the permitting. You know, dealing with your local jurisdiction, dealing with the city, dealing with the planning department, dealing with the building department. Yeah, that's where it gets very intimidating, and I think a lot of homeowners are super hesitant to actually start because of that entire process. And you know, one person tells you this and one person tells you that, so it's confusing and it gets really overwhelming. So like homeowners would be like, okay, I'm not doing this. But it's really not that hard, as long as you have a proper flow and you have a proper direction on how to start one. So it's super beneficial in so many ways. And back to the question also, so who do you need in your team? I would say you need two very important factors in building an ADU, and two very important team players. So the first one would be hiring your architect and hiring your designer, or hiring a designer. Very critical. This is the first step of starting the entire process, and it is the first step because those people are able to guide you through the state's requirements and your local jurisdiction's requirements. So obviously the state laws of ADUs are super helpful, especially at our time right now, because California is actually encouraging you to build ADUs in your backyard, and you know, it's helping battle the housing crisis here in California. And a lot of cities are actually making these regulations really relaxed, and just making it possible for homeowners to build. And so no matter what type of land you have, you are allowed to build an ADU. So that's one thing that you need to know. So if you have a single family, you have a duplex, you have a multifamily, no matter what you have, you are allowed to build an ADU. And in order for you to know what type of ADU you're going to build, you're going to need a good designer. You're going to need a good architect to know and to help you navigate through the state's requirements and your local jurisdiction requirements. It's also very important to vet your designers and architects, because they'll also kind of control the cost of your build. So yeah, and architects, you know, a lot of them can go crazy when it comes to your imagination. So some architects will go crazy and will build you luxury ADUs with like super high ceilings and like magnificent windows and stuff like that. But sometimes that's not what the homeowner needs. Sometimes the homeowner just needs something super simple, very conventional type of framing, and your architect or your designer needs to know that. And in order for you to navigate that and you know, stick within your budget, the designer has to know that. The designer also needs to know how to control the cost when it comes to plumbing. So sometimes, you know, the further your ADU is from your house, the more trenching you do, the more plumbing you do, and that gets really expensive when it comes to cost. So it's really important for the designer to know that and to help you place all the plumbing nearest to where the existing plumbing is, and that can save you tons and thousands of dollars as well. And lastly, the designer needs to be also design aware, you know, because you can walk into a 700 square feet ADU and still feel like it's 1,000 square feet. But you can also walk into 1,000 square feet ADU and it feels like 300 square feet, just because, you know, the design doesn't work, the space doesn't work. So it's very important to have all these qualities when hiring your architect and designer. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there are different type of ADUs. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to briefly go through it. There are different types, and you can look it up. It's, I mean, in Google right now, there's an ADU handbook where you can actually check the type of ADUs that fits in your property. Now, every property is unique. Some properties have bigger backyards. Some properties have smaller backyards. Some properties are even super narrow. Like in Sacramento, here in Sacramento, I'm around East Sacramento, so the properties here are pretty narrow, especially here in Midtown. And you don't have enough setbacks really on your side, so you're kind of playing with something super, super small in your backyard. So yeah, the type of ADUs are, there's a detached ADU. Basically, it's something that's new, built from scratch, but it is not attached to your existing primary dwelling. This kind of works for those properties who have like really, really big backyard. I mean, yours, Miranda, probably has a very big backyard, so yeah, that fits, you know, the perfect, that's the perfect fit for a detached ADU. But yeah, of course, there's also an attached one where you build out from your primary residence, right? And you just stick it in there and it's attached to your primary residence. Of course, it's still a different unit, so we have to make a separate access for it from outside, because and the wall that shares the primary dwelling to the attached has to be firewalled. And we'll get into that type of details, because that's a little deep now. There's also a garage conversion. So let's say you have a garage that's just, you know, hosting a lot of junk and you're not using it, and it's for storage. You're not even parking your car. You can turn that into an accessory dwelling unit as well. And it's actually really cheap because you don't have to build from scratch. The framing's already there. If you're lucky, there's, you know, if the condition is still really good, you can just really convert it and put insulation and drywall. And yeah, it is already probably a studio or a one bed, one bath. And then there's a junior ADU, which is less than 500 square feet. You know, it has to be part of your existing primary residence as well. And then there are those, you can build above your garage, or you can build in your basement as well. So those are the type of ADUs that you have. And if you want to look into that and what fits your property, you can actually check the ADU handbook and just search it on Google, and you can actually see the list inside as well. And yeah, so second, after the designer, find a good contractor. So I know that's the most like intimidating part, because that's the biggest cost that, you know, that plays in when building into one, because the construction cost is not cheap here in California. So vetting your contractor, super, super important. So those two team players plays a huge part in starting and building one.
So then, and now when you're searching for these team members, what are some really good questions that you should be asking, you know, a designer versus architect and like a general contractor? Do you think, like top 5 questions?
For
Would you say?
For the designer, I would say always ask for a proposal. And this is what I always tell. This is what I always tell the homeowners. Like, and it's not just because I'm a designer, right? I always tell them like, hey, you know, even if you're not working with me, always ask for a proposal with a timeline. Because if your designer can't provide you this, you know, it'll just be really hit and miss. Like you're paying them money and you don't know when you'll get the plan. So it's either you get the plans or you don't get the plans. And I think this is actually like the number one problem when it comes to hiring a drafter or a designer or even an architect, where they don't have a proper schedule. I think for me, it's very important to keep communication between you and the client. So always ask for a timeline, a good proposal when you're hiring your architect. Second is that the architect should be able to know the state requirements and your local jurisdiction, especially because some designers out there, they don't live in your city, or they live in another, a further city, but then that's fine. However, they still have to know the local jurisdiction, and they have to talk with the city. They have to communicate with the city when it comes to that, because you are paying them for that, and to navigate you through getting your building permit. um, and and also just past like work that they've done when it comes to ADUs, because it this is a fairly new trend right now, and everyone's building one, and it's not been here for the past 20 years. Like, it's only been here for I would say it became super popular in 2020. That's where like it literally boomed, and in COVID actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fairly new, and regulations are always constantly changing, and codes change every 2 years. So um, yeah, so you have to vet and tell your designer, like, hey, do you know your state codes? Do you know your local jurisdictions? Do you have any past work that I can see?
Okay.
And stuff like that. And it's the same for contractors. Um, Again, ask for a proposal, ask for a timeline, a proper contract. If it's written, I mean, a good contractor definitely knows how to present their bid, and is super transparent when it comes to like the progress that they're gonna do. And what this is what I always tell the homeowners, like, the cheapest guy is not necessarily the best guy. I mean, sometimes the cheapest can actually cost you more,
Yeah.
just because if they don't have all these proper just documentation, it can really bite you in the back in the future. So make sure that if you're spending this amount of money, might as well really document it really carefully. And contractors usually price per square feet, and it depends on, it depends on which city you go to. And I can't price for them because I'm not a contractor, but and they also won't bid you anything if you don't have plans. So if you ended up going to a contractor, like, hey, how much is this ADU gonna cost? They're probably gonna tell you, well, I don't know, because you don't have plans, right? So start with your designer, start with your architect, and then you can bid with your contractor after you get the plans.
And
So, yeah.
it's important for your designer or architect to have a background in engineering if you're doing a detached ADU, right? Because that's when you need the plan stamped, versus if you were converting a garage, then you don't need it stamped, and then you have a little bit more flexibility with like an architect or a designer who doesn't have a background in engineering. Is that right?
Yeah, so usually when it comes to detached ADUs, you're gonna be building from scratch. Actually, I prefer designing detached ADUs just because you're not connecting from anything, and it's easier because you're literally just starting from scratch. I mean, you're slapping a concrete slab in there, or raised floor if you want to match with the existing house. But yeah, preferably get your plans stamped, when you're doing the plans. When it comes to an addition, or like a unit that's attached, that's a little bit more complicated, just because you're trying to connect the roof line to the existing roof line to the new roof line, so that gets a little complicated. Whereas for a garage conversion, it's easy to do that, because if the garage is in great condition, obviously. If your garage literally looks like a house that, is typically gonna fall down already, and then you can see the concrete like cracking, and the entire the entire wall's already tilting, then yeah, I would suggest just to get the new ADU, just to take out everything, and do a new one. But if your garage is in fairly good condition, you don't have to do anything new or structural in there. I mean, they can just put in a floor, put in the insulation, remove the garage door, and do a garage infill, and then frame in new doors in there, and put a ceiling. So yeah, that's important too, to get a structural engineer involved when it comes to, especially those bigger ADUs.
And Bobby asked, is it recommended to level the ADU, like slab versus foundation, with an existing home?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It really depends. So some homeowners would want to obviously kind of look aesthetically pleasing when it comes to their properties. But most ADUs are in the back, so you can't really see it from the front. However, you still want your property to look, symmetrical, regardless. So obviously, if your foundation is raised on the primary dwelling, which most homes are, especially, if you don't have an if your house was like built in the 70s or the 80s, most homes are raised foundation. So it's up to you, to get that. It's also, it really depends. Like for the plumbing as well, you can raise your foundation to get that slope when it comes to the to put it on slab foundation, because that's basically every new build now, slab foundation. But it depends. So if you need that slope, some people would require raised foundation. I prefer doing slab on grade just because it's easier. But there are sites out there that just require them to have that raised foundation to get that slope for plumbing. So it's usually that, or some of them just wants to really match the house. Because if you want to match the house, I mean, you can't build like a 5 foot concrete and just match the entire roof. So that really depends on the site condition. Yeah.
Okay. And what for a separate standing garage? I'm assuming yes. So
Yes. Yeah.
perfect. And then okay, so you got your dream team, you vetted them, you're great. Next step is design and permitting.
Yeah. So design and permitting is where you actually start. So this is like the first, the first few phases of you starting your ADU. Now this part's actually fun. Like if I was the homeowner, I would enjoy this stage. I mean, it kind of depends on who your designer or architect is, if they make the process fun for you. I personally love to get my clients involved in the entire process. So what I do is I would actually have 2 Zoom meetings with them every week, and I would design with them on my software, and I would share my screen, and I would show them the 3D layout and how the design is. So that's enjoyable for the homeowner, because you want to move like walls here and there. I mean, it's kind of like you're building your own little house.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part, that's what I would usually do. So when it comes to but by that time that your architect, you've already signed a proposal, you've already signed a contract with your architect or your designer, you guys would actually have already figured out the setbacks. So just, I think this is super basic. So if you do want to build an ADU and you're not really sure of the setbacks that you're allowed to do, usually the state law obviously states that in your property lines, you are allowed to build from 4 feet from your property line. So as long as you have that 4 feet of setback from your property line, from the rear and the sides, and as long as you have that 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet, you can stake your corners of the ADU there. Now I know that sometimes the house can be super close to the property line. It depends on every city. Some cities have like a 10-foot setback from the house to the detached ADU. Some has 5, some has 6. So you got to ask your local jurisdiction when it comes to that. And then from there, if you already know your corners, your designer would then be able to do the layout for you. So this part's super fun. I mean, you get to choose where your entrance is going to be, and how many bedroom, how many bathroom. It's really like creating your own mini house. Yeah.
That's so awesome. And
Yeah.
what do you think are the most common pitfalls when it comes to this, like that people should look out for, or that maybe you see a lot happen a lot?
Yeah, so a lot of homeowners, in my experience, gets really excited when it comes to designing, and I totally get that, because, building. I mean, most of the time you are dealing with like a 750 square feet to only 1,000 square feet, right? Which is pretty much very less, almost less than half of like your regular size single family home. But they try to go really, really big on like the sizes. So they'd be like, okay, I want two bedrooms, and I want 2 bathrooms, and I want a living room with a huge kitchen. And I try to tell them, and like, hey, you're dealing with like 750 square feet. Let's try to make this work. A lot of a lot of homeowners would think that, hey, I need a very good master bedroom and a really good kitchen, but we try to make it as minimal as possible.
Mm.
One of the ways to mitigate this, especially with a very small size, is to really know how many bedrooms can fit in a square footage. The smallest ADU that I've ever designed was like 250 square feet. It was actually a shed that was, yeah, it was a shed, and but the shed was in really good condition. Um, so don't get me wrong, we didn't convert like a shed that was trying like falling apart already.
Yeah,
It was
that's what I immediately thought of.
no, it wasn't. It was a good shed. It was built like 2 years before we converted it, so it was in good condition. Um, and it was about 250 square feet, and you would think like, what can you fit in a 200 square feet, right? Because it's super super small. But we managed to put in a full bath in there, a 5x8, a 4x4 shower, a vanity, toilet bowl, and then a very very small kitchen. I mean, the kitchen was like cute. Like I literally would say it's super cute. And then we fit in a Murphy bed in there, but it worked. It really worked. It was here in Sacramento. So yeah, I mean, it depends on how you play with your
Mhm.
layout. So always know what type of square footage you're working with. So I would say from 250 to about 450. I would say that could be a studio. I wouldn't put walls in there for a one bed, one bath, just because the walls do take
Mhm.
space. About 500 to about 600, you can do like a one bed, one bath on that.
Okay.
And one thing to also consider is the square footage of your ADU. So 500 square feet, 500 square feet triggers this thing called school district
Mhm.
fees. That's not a very significant amount, so that's all right. But if you go beyond 750 square feet, you are paying this thing called impact fees,
Mm.
which can really, really be high. So always have a lookout for that, and it's good to ask your local jurisdiction on how much these impact fees are, because that can cost you a lot out of pocket. But usually ADUs are less than 750 square feet, and a 750 square feet can fit you a good two-bedroom and one bath. You can even put like a two-bed, one and a half
Mhm.
in there, to make it comfortable. So yeah, always know the square footage and be realistic. Be realistic when it comes to the space. So don't have like a 750 and like three bedrooms in there, because like I don't know, the person's probably gonna like be sleeping like
Yeah.
that. So uh, be realistic when it comes to the square footage. There's that, and where you can maximize space and where you can
Mhm.
minimize space. Try to mitigate that with your designer and architect.
Okay. And then Bobby asked, do you know of any requirements that provide separate parking spot for ADUs?
So state actually doesn't require you parkings for ADUs, but I've worked with ADUs in LA, Los Angeles. I mean, LA has a parking pandemic. So yeah, there's really not enough parking in LA. So
Oh my
it will
God.
there are no requirements for parking, and it's not really a problem out here in the north. But in LA, it is
Mm.
good to have parking. Check your local jurisdiction, but state doesn't require you for parking. So that's the good thing about ADUs.
Yeah.
It doesn't require parking. So yeah, Bobby, you don't need parking for ADUs. I know what your question is.
And then, because I know for your subcontractors, so when you vetted your team and everything, you really don't have to worry about vetting your subcontractors if you go the general contractor route, right? Because they're the ones who will then find the rest of the team members. But if you're
Yeah,
owner
so
build, that's when you find like your concrete guys and.
correct. So it depends on who you hire. Usually for owner builders, you are responsible for your permit if you do pull an owner builder permit. So you can hire whoever you want. I mean, you can hire a guy who does plumbing, you can hire a guy who does concrete, everything separately. I wouldn't recommend that if you are starting out. Um, Unless you have proper guidance from those who has a construction background. But if you are navigating these waters the first time, I would say for the very first time, and you don't have anyone to give you advice when it comes to vetting these, subcontractors. But if you do have someone who's in construction, then just be careful when it comes to that. If it's your first time, though, I would really recommend hiring a general contractor who will do everything for you. So the general contractor will hire their own subs and when it comes to everything. So you don't have to worry about that. But if you do, I mean, there is a difference between both, right? There's pros and cons. If you do hire subs and in every different aspect, well, for utility, for plumbing, for concrete, for framing, for roofing, all that type of stuff, you can it's definitely cheaper. I mean, I can say that it's definitely cheaper. Is it much more easier? Definitely not. Unless you're an experienced, if you've done this before, because you already know how it goes. But yeah, it's not easy. It's also, I mean, because the concrete guy can tell you like, oh man, they did the framing, and then the framing guy's gonna be like, oh my gosh, the concrete guy didn't do it properly, and they're not like, they're not in collaboration with each other, so
Right.
they'll end up messing up these type of works. Whereas if you hire a general contractor who does all the work themselves, usually a good general contractor would have their team is the same all throughout, and all the works that they have. Number one, they're responsible for it. Number two, they can just really have that workflow and have that consistency when it comes to the workmanship. So you wouldn't want to have like crooked walls
Right.
just because you have different subs. So there's that too. It's really it really depends on who you hire. So yeah, there's that.
Okay. And how many bids would you recommend someone getting before choosing?
I always recommend about 3 to 4 when it comes to your bid. You can obviously have more. I mean, bidding is actually a chore. You're not gonna, yeah, it's actually a chore. So it's not, you're not gonna get bids for like 2 days and you're gonna decide, right? Especially when it comes to contractors, because it's a huge amount of money. You're not dealing with like a $5,000 bill. It goes up to more than $50,000, and that's a lot of money. So always bid and it can go way higher than that. I mean, especially in the Bay Area. If you're in the Bay Area and you're building an ADU, my prayers are with you. It's really expensive in the Bay Area, especially that. So it's really
Yeah.
it's really important to vet your contractors. Have like 3 to 4 bids, right? Compare their proposals. What are the timelines like? Or is this person more detailed than the other? Reply if their communication is better than the other. So that's very important. A contractor who communicates, super important, because it's not a small bill to pay when it comes to that. So 3 to 4 bids, I would say.
Bobby asked, can you touch a little on Title 24 and what the cost is typically?
Right, Title 24. So this term's pretty alien to a lot of homeowners, and especially if I ask them, like, hey, what's Title 24? So Title 24 is an energy report. It's required for you. Well, it gets triggered when something changes in your house, right? Even if you're changing a window, you require Title 24 or a door. So basically, it's a report that kind of tells you the energy efficiency of your home, basically. The Title 24 also kind of dictates on what type of insulation you're going to use, what type of water heater, what type of HVAC system, are you going to have mini splits, all the type of stuff. Title 24 usually comes with the plans that your designer provides. So back to the first few questions that we had, what should an architect or a designer have in their proposal? Usually they would have a Title 24 in there because it's incorporated in the plans. So Title 24, I mean, no homeowner is going to pull it by themselves. I mean, because the Title 24 company would require plans. So what you can do is, when you hire a designer, when you hire an architect, they already should have included a Title 24 in there. But if you want to pull it out yourself, again, this is like very technical type of stuff, and I doubt homeowners would actually just pull it out themselves. But if you do, there are Title 24 companies in there that are offering about $300 to $500 per ADU, and that's kind of like the pricing when it comes to Title 24 if you want to do it yourselves. But yeah, Title 24 companies are making a lot of money. I mean, they do a lot of report for all ADUs, remodels, additions, and single family homes. So yeah, that's the cost that you're looking at.
Okay. And I love that you touched that should already be part of everything. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that people should make sure are included in their contracts and proposals other than the timeline and the Title 24?
Yes. So there are a lot of requirements that your designer or architect should know, especially. I mean, I can't touch into detail because it's super long, but it's a detached ADU, a new build requires solar panels, right? Mm-hmm. Just because it's the new law in California where if you have a new build, you need to stick in solar panels in there. Mm-hmm. So usually architects don't provide that. I mean, if they do, then good, but usually they don't provide that. You can contact a solar company yourself to do that. There's also, and this is super rare, only if you are in like new build properties. Usually new build properties, like especially actually in Roseville, a lot of new build homes are there have like really big backyards, and a lot of them are building ADUs. But usually these homes have fire sprinklers, right? So your ADU is required to have fire sprinklers if your existing house or your existing primary dwelling has fire sprinklers. But obviously, if your house is built, yeah, true.
I don't have that.
Yeah. But if your house is built in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, they don't have fire sprinklers. So, yeah, you're not required. Not yet, yeah. Maybe. I mean, hopefully they don't put that in yet there. So yeah, those are the two things. And in a very, very rare circumstance where sometimes your property or your fence line encroaches to your neighbor type of thing. Well, obviously if you're dealing with setbacks and stuff, you kind of want to know where your property line ends. It might be wise to hire a surveyor when it comes to that. Usually you don't need one, but if in a circumstance where your property line just encroaches to your neighbor, it'd be wise to hire a surveyor before staking your ADU when it comes to that. So that's one variable that you need to put in. If you know that your property is your fence line's like touching your neighbor's property, stuff like that. So yeah, just include that into the factor and see if your designer or architect provides that. Usually they don't, but they should know. Oh, actually, a good surveyor, or they can actually recommend you to a good one usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also asked, have you ever designed an ADU in an HOA community? Is it even possible? And then also if you have any recommendations on septic water.
Okay. Well, I'll answer the HOA first. I mean, Bobby's just asking like 5 million questions today. I'm kidding. So I have designed an ADU that's an HOA. Actually, I'm in this is my second one because a lot of homeowners in HOA communities didn't even know that they can do it. You are still allowed by state law, regardless of where you are still allowed to build an ADU even if you have an HOA in your community. Mm-hmm. And so usually you would go through the HOA first when it comes to design. Now, HOA, they basically just want your ADU to look like how the community looks like. I mean, they're very particular that your ADU is not like sticking out like, pastel colors or neon colors or weird roof lines that will kind of lose the charm of the neighborhood. They're very just particular about that. But when it comes to setbacks and ADU size, they shouldn't be able to restrict you in building one. Basically, in fact, we're actually doing one in Stockton right now, and it's a gated community, very beautiful too. There's a river and everything, and there's a very big like roundabout like driveway that they have, and it's just empty. And this homeowner was like, you know what, I'm gonna build an ADU in front of my house. So we designed an ADU in front of his house, 749 square feet. Wow. And it looks well, the finishes and the materials and all that kind of stuff, it really just blends in with the primary dwelling, and HOA allowed it because it's not sticking out. So first thing to do if you're in an HOA community is your designer or your architect will have to submit that design to them. They'll approve it, and then you can submit your building application to the local jurisdiction or to the city. So yeah, it's possible. Not impossible. It's possible.
Just making
Your
it more headache more.
Yeah, yeah, just an extra step when it comes to HOA community. So, but it is possible. Second question is septic. What was your question about septic again, Bobby?
Says, what is your rec on septic, water, etc.? Which is better long term?
So septic kind of, well, usually because most properties just tap into the city sewer, right? Or tap into the existing sewer. They'll just tie it in. But if you're in like an unincorporated county, plays in the county, or you're far away from the city, you would be required to get its own septic. I mean, Bobby, where are you at? Are you like in the farmland? No, I'm kidding. but but yeah, you would be required to have that, and it's good to speak with a septic engineer, or someone who deals with septic to kind of know the capacity of it. Get to talk to them about it when it comes to that. But usually, if you're in a city, you would tap into the city sewer, or tap into you would tap into the existing primary dwelling. If you tap into the city sewer for a new meter, that's kind of expensive. But if you tie into your existing home, that should be the way to go. So that's why it's important to put the plumbing nearby, an existing plumbing. If not, you're gonna have to trench the entire home, and that gets really expensive.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Sewer,
And
yeah.
previously you mentioned about how going with a good designer architect can save you money in the long run, because not just for like design and everything, but I recently talked to another investor who said that their architect over engineered their plans, and it ended up costing them more money. And have you ever seen that happen before, or is there anything that people can look out for to make sure that whatever quotes they're getting, they're not overly, I mean, she's like, well, now I have a really secure structure, but it just costs them more money in the long run. And so it's like, do you ever see any big pitfalls with that?
Yes. So this part gets difficult because obviously the homeowners are not going to be able to look at the structural plan and be like, yeah, this is expensive, right? Because
Right.
obviously, like, what homeowners see are just lines.
Yeah.
But to put it simply, you're not building a mansion, right? You're not building a home in El Dorado Hills, or you're not building a home in Beverly Hills. So most ADUs with super, super simple design, gable roof, stucco finish, 8 feet, 8 foot ceilings, or even 9 foot ceilings, can be built very conventional, with just 2x6 rafters, right? Or even trusses, 2x6 rafters or trusses. Ceiling joists can be 2x6. So it's your architect kind of needs to know that, kind of needs to know your budget, which is why I always, but before I actually even start designing, I would actually ask my clients, hey, what is your budget when it comes to building, right? It's I'm not a contractor, obviously, so I can't price the exact on really how much it's going to be. But a good designer or a good architect would actually gauge on how much it's going to be. Structural integrity is important, obviously, but in California, we're in flat lands, right? Unless you're in Beverly Hills, so or unless so unless you're in the hills, we're in flat lands. You can build on slab on grade, conventional rafters, conventional framing, and that should be the way to go. I mean, you can't expect steel structures in there with like trellises and all that kind of stuff. Well, that gets crazy, and that's where it gets expensive. So always look out for a designer that will ask you how much is your budget, and they will design it as simple and as cost effective as possible, which is actually sometimes why it's good to have a contract, like to bring in a contractor in the early stages of your design, if they're nice enough to give you an estimate when it comes to that. That way you can gauge on how much how much it is. But yeah, that's a very difficult thing to look at for the homeowners, because that's where it gets intimidating.
Right, because I was
Yeah.
like asking them, and I was like, "Wait, how did you ever find
Yeah.
out?" And it's like
Yeah. No,
they didn't
yeah,
find out
because
till it was too late.
yeah. No, yeah.
Because I mean,
I mean, if you
how?
see like weird trellises in there and like,
Because that's all I see.
big beams.
I
Yeah,
only see
yeah.
lines. I don't
Yeah.
see a bunch of lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, as we come up to the hour mark soon, where can people find more of these resources and do a little bit more like self education? That way they can vet, designers and architects and contractors better to, because I feel like that's the best way you can vet someone is at least having some sort of base foundational knowledge on the subject,
Hmm.
because you can come up with better questions and like kind of, test their
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing, obviously, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned it a lot in the beginning. There's an EDU handbook where you can search. That's officially a government, criteria where you can see the types of
Mhm.
ADUs, the state setbacks, and all that kind of stuff. You can read up in there. It's it's a pretty long document. It's a PDF document, but it gives you the basic. It gives you the basic ADU regulations and stuff like that. You can also, depending on which city you're at, you can also search accessory dwelling unit. For example, city of Sacramento, accessory dwelling units. Most cities now are adapting into the trend. So they are giving out handbooks for local jurisdictions, and they actually give you their codes inside. So you would actually know, the local jurisdiction codes. And so there's that. Go to your local city jurisdiction. There are very good, informative social media profiles out there who are ADU enthusiasts. And I think number one you should really look at is I'm pretty sure a lot of people know him. It's that ADU guy, Derek. Derek's a good friend of mine. He just tells you the build from scratch, right? So if you don't know that ADU guy, check him out. He is super helpful. And he really just breaks down the ADU steps for you. And he's done one himself. I think he's like the pioneer of like the ADUs, and he's built one like 30
Wow.
years ago or something. So he's the pioneer when it comes to that. He's super helpful. So shout out to Derek. Derek, if you're watching this, that ADU guy, if you don't know him. And follow MP Build CA if you want to know more, if you want to know more regulations. And actually, I'm gonna put in my email later if anyone wants to inquire and just have. I offer a 30-minute free consultation to homeowners, and this one's literally for free. I guess I'm all for really just educating homeowners out there, for them to start this journey, and not be just jumping into the unknown when it comes to this. I want homeowners to be sure in what they're doing first thing before they dive in and before they even pay anything, so that they'll be given a direction to during the building
Yeah.
process. So there's that. There are podcasts out there for ADUs. I mean, it's big. It's big right now. So those three I would say are the most, you can get a lot of information. So
Yeah.
ADU handbook, to summarize it, that ADU guy, and if you want, follow MP at MP Build CA. There are ADU requirements that we put in our Instagram page, and you can have a free consultation with me if you do want some ADU insights when it comes to that.
Yes, absolutely. And then I know, so I just really quickly want to touch on, you just went to that conference. Are there any new exciting rules, regulations, laws, anything being passed or coming up to be passed that you'd like to share with all these ADU lovers who have chimed in?
Yeah, yeah. So I went, so those of you who don't know, I attended an ADU conference in LA. It's my second one, actually. The first one's in the Bay Area, in Berkeley. And the second one was actually just about 2 weeks ago or a few weeks ago. And all of the ADU enthusiasts were there. I mean, it was a great reunion. It was a great reunion for a lot of, there were builders, architects, designers, real estate investors, basically just a melting pot of people who are, advocates for accessory dwelling units. So, yeah, that one was in LA, and exciting stuff. I mean, right now there's a bill that passes that you can actually, um, there's there's still a lot going on, so you might wanna wait and read this up first before before you actually get into it. But you can actually sell your ADU now as a separate unit. So there's that. That's very exciting. You can sell that unit. To get more into it, I can't say it in one live in one live video. But if you do want to learn more about it, you can talk to me about it, and you can search about it online. But yeah, you can sell your ADUs now, and it used to be just for single family houses, but now you can actually have ADUs in condos and in townhouses now. So, well, obviously conversions, because there's really not much space in townhouses and condos. So yeah, there's that. All these new stuff, and there's SB9 as well. If you don't know what SB9 is, it's not very popular, but it's getting popular here in California. It's allowing you to sort of split your lot 60/40. So yeah, get into that. Get into that. Search about it in Google. Look it up. A lot of exciting new stuff. I mean, yeah.
See, this is why you guys need to go follow her, because she's like, I wouldn't know that. Like,
Yeah,
you
I
have
mean,
just
I
all
read
of this
every single
knowledge.
day. I read every single day when it comes to this, because it is my bread and butter. I have to know in order for me to relay it to the homeowner. I need to relay it effectively, because some cities actually misunderstand it,
Mhm.
and because it's so alien, and because it's so new, you need an architect or you need a designer to fight for you and be like, hey, this is what the state says, this
Right.
is what the bill says, this is what the code says. So yeah, you need that someone in your team.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That is so exciting. Oh my gosh. And I can tell just how good you are at it, because your passion is just like shining through all of these like details that you're sharing right now. Like I could just tell you're excited about it
I
and you love it. And
am.
I really, really like that. I like
I,
when
I am super excited, and
your
it weren't
passion is real.
yeah, passion is real, but it wouldn't be like this if it weren't for a lot of people that actually has helped me out when it comes to this, and a lot of contractors that I work with. We really are in this industry together. So and I love this industry because I feel like everyone's helping out each other.
Mhm.
Contractors are helping out designers, architects are helping out contractors as well. So it's really like these two team players just complementing each other, and I think that should be the way. No one's competing against each other, so which is what I really like. So it's a whole community, and if you get into that good circle, you're going to be in good hands, and everything's going to be smooth, and everything's going to be efficient. So yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I am definitely gonna have to rewatch this and write down so many notes of everything you shared.
Thank you. Thank you
Everyone,
for
go
having me.
follow
It was
her.
exciting. It was exciting.
I know this is your first live,
Oh, it
right?
is. It's actually my first live. It's my first live. I was telling you the other day too. I'm like, Miranda, I'm like kind of nervous.
You did amazing. Everyone, go follow her, and you want someone like her on your team. So don't hesitate to reach out to her for that 30-minute free consultation call. So that's awesome that you're offering that too. But thank you so much for coming on, and this will be posted if anyone wants to rewatch.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye bye. Thank you.